Welcome to the Geek in Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Marlene Gabauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert.
We want to welcome Tim Follett, founder and CEO for StructureFlow, which is a visual structuring tool for lawyers. Tim, welcome to the Geek in Review.
Thanks very much for having me, Marlene.
All right, but before we jump into and talk with Tim and StructureFlow, I think at least two of us got to go to some conferences last week.
Just rub it in. That's nice. That's nice.
I was at the KM&I conference in New York, and Tim, you were at Legal Geek in London. So I think I saw great participation on both sides. In fact, Tim, you had some folks from StructureFlow at the KM&I conference as well. So, Tim, how was Legal Geek?
It was fantastic, really good. It has a kind of festival-esque flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, meeting up with lots of people that you want to talk to and catch up with, great fun and productive at the same time.
But the important question, like, do you wear tie-dye?
I mean, at home I do.
Oh, yeah.
I knew I liked you, see?
Yeah, there's not a lot of tie-dye at the KM&I conference. I think it's a little more structured than the Legal Geek /Fire conference that was going on over in London, but lots of great people. I had a good talk with Laurent Weissel, where we dove into the spectacular issue of document management systems, which actually went over quite well.
It's an important topic.
It is. There's lots going on in the DMS. So, Tim, what was your takeaway from the Legal Geek?
Takeaway is that there is just this real sense of momentum at the moment in the ecosystem. I think there's a lot going on with obviously AI, and I think there's a lot more focus around kind of legal technology now, just broadly in the technology space. It's more of a thing. People are more aware of it, and I think people sense that. It feels like a very exciting time to be in legal technology. And there was a real buzz at Legal Geek this year, and it's growing. Every year it's got bigger. I remember going to it back in 2016 and it was tiny. It was the first one they did in 2016. And it was this year, 2 days, packed full of people. It seems to get bigger physically every year. Lots more people there. Lots more people from different parts of the ecosystem as well. So yeah, it just had a real feel of like buzz about it.
You're going to have to get a bigger warehouse to party in next year.
They are, exactly.
And Marlene, you did a presentation this week with Servient.
I did. But first I will tell you that while, you were festivaling and conferencing, I donned on my cycling outfit and I went to the Ion in Houston, which is an innovation hub here in Houston, and did the Biketoberfest, which is a bike ride that they sponsor every year. And then you come back and you meet different innovators and startups and things. And I met one guy who's doing ESG forums. I met another person who's a patent attorney who is putting together an app for electric cars to use wind power that's populating the grid during peak hours when the wind is actually turning the turbine. So a very interesting group of people, and really, really enjoyed that. And I did do a presentation yesterday. I was with Ian Wilson from Servient on agentic workflow, and it was really great. Really enjoyed it. Ian is just a wealth of information in this area, and we took a really deep dive into what agentic workflow is, how it can be used. He was doing the technical aspect. I was sort of giving the firm aspect, and really thought it was a very informative and useful program. So enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I sat in on that one. You guys did dive deep.
We dove deep. We did. But that's good. Like, I mean, I don't often get the chance to go to or participate in ones like that. So I really enjoyed it and I learned a lot. So it's great.
Great. All right. Well, Tim, let's put the spotlight back on you and structure flow. So structure flow is your brainchild. And so before we dive deep on this one, can you just give us a brief overview of what led you to develop it and give us a little background on what structure flow is?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I was a corporate certainly for a number of years, and this all started with me late at night at my desk trying to put together a structure chart to go on a due diligence report to a client and trying to get that out and just wrestling with PowerPoint, trying to move shapes and lines around, trying to make this thing look good, and just thinking to myself, surely there's got to be a better way of doing this. And kind of stepping back from that realization that a huge amount of the work that we do as lawyers now requires visual ways of working. It's not just nice to have, it's actually quite core to the way that lawyers are doing their job. So I was in that case, I was working on a structure chart to go into a particular type of report. But if you think about complex restructurings or tax advice or how pieces of legislation impact corporate groups, you really can't do that work without mapping out how all the different pieces fit together. And for me, I felt that there had to be a better way of doing this and that there was this opportunity to unlock this power of visual working, but it was never going to happen if we were still using PowerPoint because it's just so damn painful wrestling with it. And so if you look at other industries, you've got computer-aided design, CAD software and engineering and construction. You've got software that helps technologists build complicated technology systems. And I thought to myself, surely there's got to be something for legal that can do this.
And then you found out that it does not, and they just stop calling you Shirley, right?
Yeah. I mean, crazy me. I decided to do something about it. And yeah, that was about 5 years ago, set up Structure Flow. So 5 years on, we have a fantastic, really powerful product, which is in market. We've got a lot of traction on both sides of the Atlantic. And for me now, actually, the more interesting question is, having stepped back a bit and thought about this a lot more, it's about, well, why are people creating these diagrams? What are these diagrams? And the reason people are creating them is they're trying to capture and communicate complex information in a way that's more accessible, easier to understand. And what they're doing with these diagrams, when we talk about diagrams now, we think these diagrams are more akin to visual language. So you see shapes and lines. Well, that's analogous with words and sentences. It's capturing information, it's communicating information, but it's just doing it in a different way. And if you look at structure charts, flow charts, timelines, there are conventions around how all of those look. People want to see the information presented in a certain way with certain formatting. They have this kind of universality because you can take a structure chart or a flow chart, you could show it to a non-English speaking lawyer in Tokyo and show it to an English speaking lawyer in New York, and they're going to look at it and highly likely they're going to understand broadly the same thing from looking at it. And that's really, really powerful.
So those are some great examples about why data visualization is so important. And I'd like to take a deeper dive into that, particularly in legal, which is, has traditionally been thought of as the written word type of profession. So why is the data visualization so crucial in today's world in law? And how does structure flow enhance that process?
Really, I mean, legal is a world where, the written word is king or queen. And, going back to those kind of medieval parchments where you see all of this calligraphy and writing and the impenetrability of that. And I think what's been happening in the world that has led to this increasing use of visualization is an increase in complexity and the need to be able to cut through that complexity. So we can look back in time, and some of the earliest structure charts you see, Dutch East India Company in the 1600s, as soon as you start getting some organizational complexity, people are trying to map it because they're trying to understand it. And there's a great example we've got of JP Morgan, 1913, a beautifully drawn chart of the JP Morgan structure, which was submitted to Congress in the context of antitrust legislation that was being introduced. I think probably done by an architectural draftsman with pen and paper and ruler and compass and all of those things. And then you fast forward through to the last 30 years or so, you've got the typewriter and then word processing and PowerPoint and people using technology to visualize more because it's easier, because you don't have to get out pencil and paper and ruler to do it. You can do it in PowerPoint or whatever, and it's quicker and easier. And I think that's being driven by an underlying need to kind of cut through this complexity. There's so many relationships, so many connections, so many things you need to think about now that you didn't have to think about in the past. And it's that ability to cut through that complexity, which I think is where the power is with data visualization.
With visualization, I think a lot of people are enthralled with some of the features that we're seeing that artificial intelligence, especially generative AI, is allowing us to do. So I know you guys are integrating some AI tools into your data visualization tools. So what kind of specific things can AI technology do to help visual flow, kind of implement and utilize the resources that the Gen AI tools can provide?
So I think what's really interesting about what we do, it is data visualization, but it's not in the Tableau or Power BI sense. We're not working with like numbers and graphs, etc. What we're working with is more akin to relationships. It's like this shape, this line, this shape. But the shape has a meaning and the line has a meaning and the other shape has a meaning. And so fundamentally what you're working with is relationships. And so a lot of the work that we have as lawyers, if you think about it, when you read contracts, you read emails, you look at existing structure charts or corporate registers or whatever it is, a lot of that information that you're working with, the core subject matter of what you're working with is about relationships. It's about, this company owns this company, or these companies are party to this contract, and this party over here has the right to do this, and this party has the obligation to do that. And all of that stuff is fundamentally about relationships. And because of that, it's fundamentally capable of visualization because you can use shapes and lines to visualize it. I think what becomes really interesting in our world is that what we want to do is to automate the visualization. And in order to do that, we need to translate between written language and visual language. And so the AI technologies that we have now with LLMs, which come from natural language processing paradigm, it's that ability now to chuck a whole load of complex information into an LLM and have it parsed, and the entities, the relationships between the entities be extracted, and then you can automatically start to visualize those relationships. And so what you can do is kind of automate what would otherwise be done in the human brain. So that's a kind of core use case. Other use cases are co-piloting, so that you can have an AI assistant that's able to read a diagram for you, able to tell you information if you ask it questions. Another use case is around being able to translate back from diagrams into natural language descriptions. We have lots of clients who are interested in this because they have to, as part of regulatory filings, submit not just a diagram, but they may have to describe it in words as well. So these are all really exciting ways in which you can use these new technologies to make life a lot easier for people and unlock this power that visualization has.
You said CoPilot, but in a different context. Do you think people see the Microsoft CoPilot with Office 365 as being able to do what you're saying Structure Flow does? What kind of separates you from what is expected out of the CoPilot for Office 365?
Yeah. Pilot capability you get in 365. And what you get generally in 365 is general purpose, general capability tooling. And that is good and useful to some extent. But as soon as you get into things which are more relevant to our world, our domain, you start to see that tooling have limitations. And so just a simple way, being able to go into PowerPoint and tell it that you want it to create something, you're able to do that with CoPilot, but you're probably going to get more success if you're talking to it in terms of, I want you to create one box at the top, 2 boxes below, 3 boxes below that, right? Whereas what you want to really be able to do, and what we're driving towards, is that you as an attorney can sit down in our system and you say, I'm just about to start a new deal. We've got a complex leveraged acquisition structure. And I need you to base the structure on a project that we did 3 months ago, but I want you to change it with this and that. And you get your first cut of that structure from that kind of input. You're not going to get that in PowerPoint.
So this actually highlights a question that I have. I guess, PowerPoint probably being the most basic of the tools. I mean, there are data visualization tools out there for the legal profession, but I think there's probably a range of ease of use on some of these. And you highlighted this really well with the CoPilot example that, you kind of have to do it step by step, as opposed to just being able to give direction and have the system do it. How does Structure Flow ensure that the data visualization tools are user friendly and acceptable to the non-technical users? How do you make it easy for people to just get in there and do their work?
Yeah, and I mean, broader context, it's like the paradox of like lawyers, where really intelligent people who are highly capable of doing a whole load of different things, but they're time poor, they're really desperately in need of doing stuff simply and quickly. And if you can't deliver against that, then they're not going to use you. And it's this kind of, for us, it's this, how do we make this as simple as people want it to be, but as powerful as they need it to be? And how do you balance that? And it's really tricky, because there is this need to make it immediately accessible so people can go in and pick it up and they can be up and running really quickly. But if they want to go deep, they can go deep. For us, there's an immediate kind of need to anchor ourselves in the PowerPoint paradigm, in the world of PowerPoint. So when you come into Structure Flow and you start using it, if you've used PowerPoint, you're very familiar with it. That's on purpose. We purposefully designed it so that it looks and feels like you're in PowerPoint. And then what we do around that is we have a variety of other functionality that can be accessed, and we allow people to be able to navigate easily to that. And it is a question of, at that point, making it as simple as possible to upload documents and data and ingest that and get an output, but trying to always make it very clear to people as they're using the application what's going on. And, it's an interesting question that you asked, because a lot of these data viz tools, like if you think of traditional data viz with Tableau or Power BI and this stuff, I mean, it's really complicated stuff. You have to really know what you're doing. PowerPoint, not so much, but actually to be a PowerPoint wizard, you do need to invest quite a bit of time into it. And my hat goes off to people who are Visio wizards, because that really does take quite an investment to be able to work magic with that. Yeah.
Let's talk about some real world use cases for structure flow. Do you have some examples or some case studies that you've done where structure flow has significantly impacted the work of your clients?
Yeah. So there's a project we were recently involved with for a major US law firm client, where they had a client that was doing quite an extensive legal entity rationalization exercise. And they were working with about 750 odd rows of data and spreadsheet entity data. And to my point at the start of the show, there is certain work that you just can't do unless you're working visually. And this kind of work is exactly what's in that bucket, because you have to map it. You have to be looking at all of those entities and the relationships between them visually in order to do the work. And so they needed to get this visualized very quick. And if they'd done it traditionally using PowerPoint, it would have taken, by my estimate, a number of weeks to do it. And we built data import capability where you can now, at the click of a button, get that kind of data in. They wanted to organize it in a particular way. They wanted to color code it in a particular way. They wanted to put state flags on particular entities. So we've been building ways that actually from the data, you can now automate the formatting of the visuals. We were able to get that data set visualized very, very quickly for them. That's not the end of the process for them, because then they've got to deliver they've got to do the thinking, they've got to deliver the legal advice, and they've got to work with that and tell their clients, we recommend that, we rationalize the structure in this way and all the rest of it. But we were able to get them from 0 to 1 quickly.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump to a question I had later, but I think you set it up pretty well. And you talked about importing the data from different aspects of the technology that the law firm may have. I know I went through a demo a few weeks ago, and we did some examples where we're actually taking information that was exported into JSON formatting and then being able to import that into the system. So what's some of the key features that allow you to do this type of data importing from multiple other systems in yours?
So you need the thing that's different with this type of software is you need to have a data model that sits underneath the visuals. And you need to have an information architecture that reflects the world that you're working in, the types of visualization that you want to be able to create. And so you're creating a system that understands what these different things and these different relationships are. And because of that, it's able to help you with the translation of natural language or structured data into visuals. It's not the end of the show, because you also need to have something like a layout engine, which is algorithmic, which is essentially identifying how best to lay this out on the page. And so you're combining these things together so that effectively you're taking a lot of existing information, you're extracting from it what you need, you're packaging that back into data structure that you can feed into a Canvas engine, and then you can layer a layout engine into that, which will, hey presto, go from written text to visuals.
Does it allow you to kind of look at different options of how it's laid out, so there, you don't necessarily just have one output, but you may
Different
look at
views.
multiple and see what works to tell that story best?
That's a really exciting area. What we're trying to do is take mental load off people, basically. So like if you've got a manual diagramming workflow where someone's having to read all this stuff and work out what's going on and then work out how they want to visualize it, then assuming the lawyer's doing it themselves, or maybe a PA is doing it or someone else doing it, then you got to think, well, how do I present this? How do I make this easy to consume? What colors do I need to use? How can I fit this all onto one sheet of paper? All of that stuff, which again is like mental load, mentally draining. Do I really need to be doing this? Surely something else should be working this out for me, right? And so exactly as you say with your question, and there's so many things about it. How do you best lay out this diagram in this particular way? And we can help.
So generally in these sort of like complex litigation or a complex deal, there's always a team that's responsible. It's not one person that's working on this matter. And so collaboration is really essential. So I'm wondering how Structure Flow facilitates collaboration amongst the team members.
Really. So there's always been this digital whiteboard style experience that we want to emulate. What you find with solutions like Miro or Mural, that ability for multiple people to come together and look at something and understand something in unison is really, really powerful. The way that we do that currently, we have sharing capability. We allow people to come into a project and work collaboratively on projects internally, and we're about to release external sharing as well.
Clients?
We have some.
That's great.
Yeah, which is really exciting. It's an interesting exercise, though, trying to emulate a Miro style collaboration experience in the legal world, and it's going to be interesting.
I think we both experienced that.
Not quite as open and sharing.
Yeah, I mean, there's an interesting dynamic between the lawyers and their clients, and the way that lawyers want to deliver content to their clients, and they want the content to be perfect. And there's almost this kind of, the artist who's doing the portrait, who, doesn't let the sitter see the portrait until the final moment and then whisks off the cloth.
That's a great analogy.
That's a great analogy.
That's a great analogy.
That. So there's that dynamic, which is an interesting dynamic. But I do think there is something really powerful about how do lawyers engage with their clients, and how do they share information and work together with their clients. And the value proposition that we have, there is a big part of it is, yes, we're going to save you time. Yes, we'll make you more efficient. But often actually, lawyers will be thinking, actually, do we want to be more efficient? Do we want to be reducing the amount of time we bill, etc.? But I think what no one will disagree with is that lawyers want to be able to win more clients. They want to win more business. They want to have stronger relationships with their clients. They want more stickiness, and all of that stuff, we believe, can be strengthened by using visualization more effectively.
What are some of the things that your clients have told you that they really enjoy, or that have kind of wowed them? And I'm curious, are those the things that you thought would wow them, or has there been some surprises on features that they've liked that caught you maybe caught you off guard?
We've had some, we've had a whole variety of different use cases kind of pop up that we weren't necessarily expecting. Some law firms that are using software to map out their client organizational structures and kind of command structures. So thinking about selling legal services into particular corporates, they're using software to map those corporates and track actually who are the decision makers, who do we really need to impress when we're on this pitch. So that's a kind of interesting use case that's emerged quite organically and across multiple different clients. Then, I mean, what delights our clients, what we found is that there is continually a real sense of satisfaction when they've been able to use the software to delight their clients. And often that is happening in a biz dev context. It's happening in pitches. It's happening in the early conversations that they're having with their clients on disputes and transactions, and they're trying to engage with their clients in interesting ways and have more interesting conversations with them. And that is very, very powerful. And if you've got one law firm that's doing that and another law firm that's not, the client notices quite quickly that they're missing something.
Yeah, and I imagine with the visualization that can become apparent pretty quickly. If one's showing up and has a PowerPoint pitch that is filled with words, and then one comes in and basically tells a story through the visualization, that impacts is a lot stronger. And we see that, even within our firm that we've seen things like that. So yeah, I can see that being very important.
Yeah, and I mean, sort of potential clients seeing that just in terms of a pitch, then they also start to think, okay, how can that be applied in my work? I mean, it's very clear and there's a big impact there. Neat. Tim, you recently got some Series A funding to expand in the US. So why did you make that choice, and what's the roadmap for that expansion?
Yeah, I mean, the US is such an exciting place to be. Generally, very, very, very exciting.
Most of the time.
Caveat.
And there's obviously a lot going on at the moment, and you've got the election coming up. And yeah, I know it's not easy. Probably being
We
in
just
the
keep
US
doing deep breathing.
Yeah. But you know what? It'll be fine. And I think I look at the US and I just see such amazing opportunity. I love being over in America. I'm just beginning to explore it more. Been in Texas earlier this year. I've just done a little tour of the southern states. I'm going to be in Miami in December. I'm spending a lot of time in New York. I want to be out in Chicago soon, and West Coast.
Miami in December is a good place to be.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Should be nice. Should be nice. But to answer your question, there's just so much opportunity in the North American market generally, Canada included. And we've built a pretty solid business over here. About 50% of our revenue now is from North America, and it's growing. And the product that we've built has global relevance. To my point earlier about it having these diagrams, these charts, they have this universality to them. And the American market is there for all of us to kind of get our teeth into. So we brought on board a US investor, US venture capital firm called FinTop Capital. They're a small in terms of number of people, but significant in terms of assets under management. Venture capital firm based in Nashville, Tennessee. They've also invested in Legatics, which is another UK legal tech business. And the partner that led our investment is a guy called Chris Haley, who is a former corporate tax attorney. And he kind of immediately got what we were trying to do because he'd spent hours and hours earlier in his life wrestling with PowerPoint. Yeah, we've really enjoyed having FinTop on the journey with us and very excited for where we're going to go next.
So, Tim, at this point, we have our crystal ball question that we ask all our guests. And basically that is, what do you see as the future for visualization tools within legal over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so my take on this is that what we're building is a visual interface. It's a type of interface into certain types of information that are well presented in the way that you look at a structure chart or a flow chart or a timeline, etc. So what we are doing essentially is creating a graphical user interface that can sit within the tech stack and can allow someone to navigate their way around information and systems. It's how we look at the evolution of structure flow. So I have a vision which is around a lawyer of the future being able to start a matter, transactional dispute, and at the start of it, it could be very simple. It could be a ChatGPT style interface where you just say to it, I am going to be doing this type of matter. And that then could talk you through some options around what kind of tech do you want to use in this matter. And this type of matter, we would ordinarily expect you to have this kind of tech stack and have that system then be able to kind of create a protocol and pre-populate those systems for you with some kind of data ingest mechanism that allows you to pull all your factual information that you need for your matter into some kind of space where you can then work on it. And then probably a series of different interfaces that allows you to work on your matter with different types of data in different systems. And I think structure flow would be part of that. Structure flow that in terms of structure charts, flow charts, timelines, those kinds of interfaces into information. But then when you need to do your drafting or you're doing your transaction management or whatever, you go into other systems that allow you to do all of that. And crucially, all of this stuff is connected together. And that's the thing that's missing at the moment. And I mean, connected together from a data perspective, and there's some really interesting work being done by Sally and others on standardization of ontologies and data structures and all of that. But I also mean connected together probably in some form of single interface. So you're not in a web browser. You're not moving in between one web app and another web app, one window and another window. It is all seamlessly interconnected. And so what you end up with is this experience as a lawyer where you start your matter at inception, you're pulling information in, the data is getting structured at inception, it's then fed across your workflow, across multiple systems, and you have a user experience that feels seamless and joined up. It's the Minority Report, Minority Report, that film, yeah. Minority Report. It's standing in front of that screen and having just complete mastery, right, of everything.
We all do the same thing.
Yep. I'm waiting for the monitors where you can see through the monitors and you can just start moving stuff around. Yeah, that's the dream. So, well, it sounds like we got an exciting couple of years in front of us then. So, Tim Follett from CEO and founder at Structure Flow, want to thank you very much for coming in and talking with us today. This has been great.
Great. Thank you, Marlene. It's been awesome.
And thanks to all of you, our listeners, for taking the time to listen to the Geek and Review podcast. If you enjoy the show, share it with a colleague. We'd love to hear from you, so reach out to us on LinkedIn.
And Tim, we'll put links in the show notes for everybody, but what's the best way for people to find out more about Structure Flow or to reach out to you with more questions?
If anyone wants to DM me on LinkedIn, love that. Also our website or our site on LinkedIn. Yeah.
And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, Marlene, I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Hey,